Okay, we're going to do the speed run. A last recording I did was 18 minutes long, and that was way too long. Anyway, we're not doing an intro. We're getting straight into it. Dirk over Kevin Garnett. Why? Okay, time frame for this video is going to be from the 04 season to the 2011-12 season. Very important. I'm not going to talk about the regular season numbers because those are very similar to their playoff numbers. I completely concede that those are not that crazy. Playoff success, they both have the same amount of playoff success for the most part. And I mean at the upper echelon. They both have one they both have one ring. They both have one MVP. Kevin Garnett has a Defensive Player of the Year, and Dirk has his Finals MVP. Great, that's important. Let's move straight into the playoff battles. Let's get it started. 2006 is where I'm going to start for Dirk. The reason I'm starting in the 2006 season is because that encapsulates his first finals run, all the way to his second finals run, and then his eventual loss to the team that would make it to the finals, OKC, in the first round. And now we're going to talk about Kevin Garnett's playoff window. His is the 2004 to 2012 season. The reason that window looks slightly bigger is because Kevin Garnett missed the 05 and 06 and 07 playoffs. So I decided to nix those. I decided that since they're not there, they don't exist, I have to add another year for Kevin Garnett to make his playoff years of a similar time frame. And I just mean in seasons and not in the same time frame. Obviously, they're not the same time because 04 to 12 is slightly longer than 06 to 12. This does encapsulate Kevin Garnett's his Western Conference Finals run, where he eventually loses to the Spurs. And if that's an 04, I'm pretty sure the Pistons lose to the Spurs this year. Yeah, the Spurs in the Western Conference Finals, they win, they beat them, they go on and they play the Pistons and they win. That's not important for this. Preferences is another thing. My power forwards list all time goes Tim Duncan, Giannis. By the way, Giannis is he's not close yet, but he's getting up. I don't want to sound like I'm moving the goalposts with my hands. But anyway, there. Dirk here, Kevin Garnett here. Both under Tim Duncan, debatably under Giannis. I'll do that in a later video. Okay. So, less rambling. Let's get straight into Dirk's playoff numbers. Dirk's numbers are 27 points, if you round up, because it's 26.5. 48% from the field. 18 shots. Which, for a star player to be getting 18 shots, I'd say is very interesting because I'll note that the pace at this point in time in the period of basketball they were playing had to be slower because a star player getting 18 shots, and nowadays is unheard of. 48% from the field is also unheard of. You got to keep in mind the pace is lower. There's less spacing. Dirk spaces the floor very well for a power forward at the time, but like that's not something that people are just in awe about right now. Dirk shoots 35.6 from the field over this time, about 2 to 3 attempts from 3, 90% from the free throw line, and he averages about 2 to 3 turnovers per game, with 10, and he also grabs about 10 rebounds. I'm not gonna argue with you about the impact of rebounds because I don't care. Rebounds don't matter. I will eventually probably do a video on why rebounds don't matter, and you can thank Andre Drummond for allowing me to realize this because he's a rebound machine, and I don't think anyone cares at all. Kevin Garnett's numbers are 19 points on 48% field goal percentage, 48 field goal percentage, Jesus Christ, 80% from the line. We're not going to talk about his three-point percentage because that's not the player he was. He has around the same turnovers, 2.3, which is around, you can up 2.3 or 2.4, depending on how you look at it. You round that up, that's about, give or take 2 to 3 turnovers a game. Similar turnover ratio to Dirk. I didn't talk about their assists because that's also not their game. I will note that Kevin Garnett was a savvier passer than Dirk for me. But that's a subjective thing. These numbers are objective. There's nothing I can do to skew them in his favor. The reason the window is at the 12th season, apologies for what you just saw. I had to stretch. I felt uncomfortable. But anyway, apologies for that. The reason the window was like this is because Dirk's finals run, this encapsulates Dirk's finals run. I think this is both their peaks, to be quite honest. And I had to do this because otherwise the window would be too big, and I didn't want to encapsulate their entire careers because they're not relevant. the teams that they were on for quite a while sucked. And they continued to suck until they really, really, really got good. Anyway, another thing we're going to have to use is context. Context is very important. Garnett's numbers here aren't going to look as impressive. Because through this time period, he was either the second or third option. This is not due really to talent at all. I think this is due a lot to him deferring to Paul Pierce and the fact that he was anchoring a defense. A really good defense, mind you. Dirk, on the other hand, is about passable on defense, to be quite honest. And at worst, he's a net negative defender, but his offense allows him to still be on the floor most of the time. Also, because what else are you going to do? Just not play Dirk? Yeah, you're not going to do that. So, Kevin Garnett goes missing in these playoffs runs. 5, 6, 7. And he doesn't do anything until the 2008 season in the playoffs in this window. You got to be very careful with my wordings here. And yes, I'm acknowledging that Kevin Garnett had a great finals, Western Conference Finals, mind you, run before he lost to the eventual champions that were the Spurs. But if anything, that looked like an overachievement on Kevin Garnett's part, because I looked back at that roster. It's mid. It's very mid. It's like, I don't have an analogy. Maybe my analogy game will get better as longer I become a YouTuber, but that's not important. Okay, so context. I already told you that I think Kevin Garnett is either deferring to Paul Pierce. He's deferring to Paul Pierce and he's deferring to Allen. These are forwards, and these are their forwards and their wing players. I said forwards. They're not their forwards. They're their wing players. Jesus Christ. Paul Pierce is playing the small forward, and Allen is playing the shooting guard. The offense that they're running allows those two, to be primarily higher offensively ranked with the way that they play. Those two are going to have more shots, more attempts, more touches, and to be quite frankly, they're not getting Kevin Garnett's going to have to play harder on defense, and that's exactly what happened. Kevin Garnett played seamlessly, and they all fit together very well. There was a small adjustment period, but that never really bothered them. I will note that the Celtics in this time period were getting into a lot of game 6s and 7s that, from what I can tell from watching other YouTubers, and because I was alive then, but I wasn't a basketball fan. I'm 18 right now. So I wasn't a basketball fan. I was a casual at best in those time periods. And that's why it's really important for me to, preface that. I was not watching basketball then. I started really, really watching basketball in the 18th season. Irony, whatever. That's very important. And the reason this is important is because this gives context to that. The era is slower, the pace is slower, they're playing at a slower pace, and this is also due to Kevin Garnett. Kevin Garnett is making the defense slower. Making the offense slower as well. They are playing at a phenomenal pace. They're shutting teams down defensively. Not to the degree that the Pistons were doing it in 04 and 03, but they are very good defensively. And that's a lot, and that has a lot to do with Kevin Garnett. And Kevin Garnett also won his defensive player in this era. Notice that it's very hard to argue which year is actually his best year, his MVP year, his defensive player of the year, because he wins the chip in his defensive player of the year, and he had no help on this other one, and he did something very impressive. Got to teams in the Western Conference Finals and playoffs. The narrative around this time is that both of these players are considered to be losers. And the reason I say this is because in 06, 07, or is it 07, 08? I'm not particularly sure. It's 07 for sure. The 07 playoffs. Yep, the 07 playoffs. After Dirk goes to the finals, and Michael Jordan shows up, and his name was Dwayne Wade in that series. Michael Jordan and a hobbled Shaquille O'Neal, lowering down himself, lower and lower because Shaq was starting to lose a little bit of steam. He's gotten older, he's getting more injuries, stuff like that. The reasons why Lakers got rid of him, but that's neither here nor there. Dirk loses to the We Believe Warriors, and that is the biggest stain on his career, and this is why many people consider Dirk a loser until 2011 when he bounced LeBron James and his super team. Yes, I'm calling them a fucking super team. They're a super team. If you disagree, you're fucking wrong, and I'll probably have a video describing what I really believe is a super team, because the Los Angeles Lakers this year make me sick. But that's not important. Dirk was never on a super team. That's true. That's really due to Dirk's own thing. Whatever. The era was different. It's different. Dirk's 2011 run, he beats Kobe and the Lakers in the first round, who are the defending champions, mind you. He beats OKC, who would go on to win the Western Conference Finals the next year and bounce them. That exact same team, which, mind you, the 2012 team was a lot worse of a roster than the 11 team. I don't know what the Mavericks were doing, but they just got rid of mainly all of the chips that helped them win that year. So that's important for this context too. The Celtics never had a problem really retooling around the big three at all. So this is important. The narrative around Dirk is he's a loser. The narrative around Kevin Garnett in this similar time until he wins in the finals was going to be that he was a loser. Because honestly, those not making the playoffs for 3 years straight, kind of looking crazy after you made it to the Western Conference Finals after your MVP year. And it's another reason why the Timberwolves don't make the playoffs until they get their rental and Jimmy Butler before they eventually have to trade him the very next season to the Philadelphia 76ers. That's never here nor there. Right? That's neither here nor there. Kevin Garnett's numbers are going to look kind of crazy because he's the second or third best option. Why do I have Dirk? So why do I have Dirk above him? If I have him for deferring. If I have reasons why Kevin Garnett deferred. Reasons why he was winning more. Reasons that honestly show you that Kevin Garnett is much better on the defensive end. Because the way Dirk closed out that amazing 2011 run, by beating that Miami team was absurd. Miami had went up to two games to none, and it was very possible at that point in time, because they beat them on Dallas's home floor, mind you, that they could have swept there. At the very minimum, this series could have been Miami in 6, which most people at the time were predicting. Okay, so what you just saw, I ramble on for a little bit, but I need to clarify things what I meant right there. What I meant right there is the fact that I have Kevin Garnett lower is because the playoff success is more due to Dirk's playoff success is more due to what he did than Kevin Garnett's success what he did. That sounds so dumb. However, please listen. Expectations around those teams were completely different. Also, I'm not sure if I was correct about, those games happening on Dallas's home court, but I'm pretty sure I'm 100%. I'm pretty sure that I'm right about that. I could be wrong. If I am wrong, I will tell you in the next video, because I'll have to do research for it anyway. But yeah. God, I'm rambling. Anyway. Jesus. But listen. Dirk's playoff success has more to do with his individual numbers and what he did on the court with himself and how his teammates that were of a lower echelons played around him and with him than Kevin Garnett's. Dirk, for the most part, I'd honestly say all time versus their teams versus their teams, in this hypothetical situation, I'd say most of the time Dirk's rosters were better. However, when Kevin Garnett started winning, which is what I'm talking about the most, when Kevin Garnett started winning, his rosters were better than the rosters that Dirk's had when he was winning his games. Okay? Okay, cool. I'm glad I've got that off of my chest. Because whatever I was saying then was not cohesive or, I will take adhesive, but it wasn't, fluid, right? That's important. And also, the expectations of those teams lead to completely different narratives and situations. And honestly, even if we go back now with hindsight, what Dirk did in that 2011 run was crazy. And I didn't even mention his 2006 finals run, where he was still the very best player on that team and still had to get through a gruesome West, and still the very next year was MVP. Which is kind of crazy to me, because when Kevin Garnett won his MVP, he just kind of... When Dirk won his MVP, yeah, he lost in the first round, but He was the number 1 seed off of a finals run. The narratives around them were completely different. The reason people were considering Dirk a loser until this time period was honestly kind of weird to me. And looking back, it is weird. Because the guy came off of a finals run and where he just got outplayed by another all-time great. Sure, we didn't know Dwayne Wade was an all-time great then, but we could have seen it coming. It was pretty obvious, in my opinion, just based on the numbers that he had in that final series. And Dirk still came back, had a crazier run in 2011, and won. Yes, I 100% believe that Kevin Garnett has better defense, has similar offensive production if he's being the number 1 option, and is also a all-time winner. At least among all NBA players, not among the upper echelons of all grades, because Tim Duncan's got him on that one, and Tim Duncan's got really everyone on that one, and I'd even argue Giannis over him. But that's not important. The thing that I'm trying to get my point across is that the playoff success that Dirk had, and the fact that neither of any of those years that I've mentioned and brought up, I can truly say that Dirk was looking very ass or mid in all of those years, except for probably the We Believe's Warriors one, where he was, not 100% the best he could have been. Yes, I do believe he played pretty bad in that series, but that's an outlier, and it's one series. If you look back at what I said, I never really held the Celtics series going for long against Garnett. I truly believe if he was really healthy in the season that they lost to Orlando, the 2009 season after their run, that he would have, helped them win, and we would have gotten Kobe versus those Celtics earlier. Don't think they would have won, mind you, but we would have gotten them earlier. But the availability of Dirk is better. His numbers, to me, offensively, are just better. I'll have to figure a better way out to use defensive metrics. The NBA community is trying to figure that out anyway. But it's hard. It's really hard to place these players above each other. I just know, in my personal opinion, based on the parameters that I set for this video, and the parameters that I set for most all-time grades, if not all around this range, is winning. Dirk won significantly more often in the playoffs. And he was more available in the playoffs. He was there more often in the windows that I was talking about than not. And that matters. And that's why I have Dirk above Kevin Garnett. But if you disagree, feel free to disagree. Tell me why I'm wrong in the comments. I kind of need, people to interact with this video. But, yeah, Editor Viskel out. Have a blessed one.